Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Living Ascension, which it's funny because we couldn't have had a better name for this podcast or discussion,
Exactly. Right.
I mean, it's us living differently makes all the difference, right? And so that's really what we're here to talk about. And that's what we talk about every week. And it's so funny because the topics that are coming up, especially right now, they're so powerful and so transformative in terms of shifting little things to make huge differences in our lives, right?
That term on point just feels like that's where we are, is everything is so on point with this.
Absolutely. So we were hit, both of us and others we know, like over the past several weeks with this feeling. So what did we talk about last week? We were talking about, because it just naturally flowed right into this when we talked.
Wow.
Well, you're gonna have to look it up because my phone is downstairs today.
Yep, I will look it up. I will look it up. Let's see. Wow. Was it still more heart-based?
Right. We've been going through the several weeks of the mind-based living, right? Living mind-based, living heart-based versus mind-based, and how to shift that and how to shift what's the predominant energy and where that comes from and stuff. Okay, so one of the biggest things, thank you. That was what I needed to get us connected back to that, right? But that's one of the biggest things that takes us out of our heart space, which is scarcity. Scarcity. And we can talk about scarcity in so many different ways of, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough friends or enough followers, or I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't have enough
Focus.
Yeah.
I don't have enough sleep.
Right. Right. I don't have enough love in my relationship. I don't have enough in my relationship. I don't have enough relationships. I don't have, enough, period. So whenever you think I don't have enough of anything, that is living in scarcity. And what happens is this is where we get things like passive aggressiveness. We have things like, when we get all of these, what we consider negative emotions or limiting interactions with other people. Oh, excuse me, from ourselves and from others, has to do with where they're coming from in scarcity of.
Right. Good morning, Yasmin.
Good morning, Yasmin. And typically where we want to then project it onto somebody else, right? So when somebody is saying you don't have enough this, or you should be better at this or whatever, that's because they actually have a hidden scarcity within themselves, right?
Right.
Well,
and if we take this and look at it from where we are collectively, we are in nothing but scarcity. Look at it from the perspective of like global warming. That makes us instantly feel unsafe at every level.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a scarcity because, you're not safe. So you have that,
we don't have enough
to feel.
We don't have enough carbon dioxide. Oh no, we don't have enough oxygen. We don't have enough whatever. We don't have enough regeneration, right? There's the I don't have enough part, right? That's the scarcity.
Right.
And so when we hit on this early last week, because we had this topic, right? Okay, seriously, I keep on seeing hawks right in front of my face. It's hysterical. One just flew right in front of my office window. That was bizarre. But the whole thing is, like if we live a lot of, look at every commercial we watch. Every commercial we watch is a brainwashing on that you have to be scarce. You have to live in scarcity and want. To be in want of something is to be in scarcity of it, right? So
you need X, Y, or Z.
Yes.
Always.
So that's what happens when the panic comes in of, am I going to have enough money for this? Or I'm not, I'm not going to do this until I have this money, or or I can't, or even like, am I going to be able to pay all the bills, or am I going to be able to do this, or, oh, I'd love to do this, but I can't because, because first I have to do this. And that's all scarcity, right? And so I learned
Right.
early on in the consciousness game here is realizing that number one is the idea of scarcity is the idea that we don't have something, which is a falsehood because we are the divine and infinite and we have everything at our disposal. It's whether we have yet to allow it. Right.
Right. And I mean, you even look at that from the perspective of the spiritual community now, there's even scarcity in that,
Mhm.
almost to make it more acceptable to where we are,
Yeah.
to make it the answer to the need.
Right. Well,
And
it
then
makes
you
it
get
creates the
into-
drama. Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, and we've talked, I don't know if we've talked in this forum about it, but you get into the vegetarian and the vegan and the omnivore and the pescatarian and all
Who's
the
better
different-
and who's worse and who's, yeah.
right. And it's, and we even texted about it. I don't even remember what day it was, but it's the consumption of the belief that we need to consume energy external to us. And,
Mhm.
and that's because there's that need, there's that scarcity, which
Mhm.
drives so much of our behaviors.
Well, our biological
judgment.
functions, right? Yeah.
Right.
We don't have water and we die, right? We require ingestion of water.
Well, and then the
to
whole,
change ourselves.
and it needs to be 80 ounces, or it
Mhm.
needs to be 8-ounce glasses, or it needs to be this, or it needs to be this. And we talked, what was that, Friday, about how we've just gotten into that habit of accepting we need this, and we never check into to our guidance of, well, okay, the average person might need that, but do I need that?
Right. Right. Is it for me right now?
Is it for me?
Yes.
Right.
And so right now, because it could not be for you in an hour, right? Or tomorrow. So
Exactly.
So it was interesting because I had some, and both of us did, like, I think it was not this past weekend, but the weekend before, it started coming in these like fears around like anxiety, random anxieties that
Yes.
just made no sense. Right.
Right.
And anxiety, by the
Silly
way,
things.
yeah, and anxiety is a complete energy based in scarcity because anxiety means I'm not going to be able to blank, or
Right.
I can't
Right.
control this, or I can't, like that kind of stuff.
Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Michael. And so when I went into meditation, this is what brought this whole discussion up. And it was actually last Monday, because I remember it was Monday morning before our thing. And then I was like, oh, and we got off and I was like, oh my God, I think I have our topic for next week.
Right.
Because I went into meditation and I said, okay, what we've been talking about in presence right here on our stuff is when we get like those kind of emotions that sort of overtake us or overwhelm us. It's for us to not, instead of trying to do something about them right away, it's to sit back and say, invite them in and say, okay, so why are you visiting? So anxiety, why are you here? What are you here to show me? What are you here to like bring to light that I would not otherwise look at?
What are you here to share with me?
Yeah, right.
Right.
And as somebody we know says, don't invite them in and put them on the most comfy couch or whatever, but say you can come for a cup of tea and that's about it. And then, you can go on your merry way.
Say what you have to say.
Say what you have to say and go on and go on your merry way.
Exactly.
So I did that and I said, okay, anxiety, this is weird because I was waking up at like 4:30 in the morning and having these weird, anxious thoughts that I hadn't been having for, I don't know, years and years and years. And I was like, this is ridiculous because it's not even the same kind of thing, same energy.
Right.
And I was like, so what is this about? So what are you here to show me? Like, what are you here to tell me? And what's your, what's your purpose? And it came to me very clearly when I sat in that peace and that presence with that energy was, I protect you. I protect you from freedom. And then I was like, what? You protect me from freedom? What? You protect me? And I thought, wow, that was so huge of an epiphany.
And so unexpected and not anything that you were conscious of.
Right, right, right. And I was like, and it was easy. I mean, it was like, I didn't have to reach for it. It literally was just, oh yeah, here's what I'm here to show you. And I was like, what? And the ego's like, no, 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 no. And then I was like, oh, well, yeah, there it is.
Right.
Called myself out on that. Right. So then when we started talking about it, it was like, oh my God, look at what we do. Like we create the scarcity to keep us contained, to keep ourselves limited,
Keep us small.
to keep ourselves small.
Right.
Because if we didn't worry, we wouldn't stop ourselves. Think about that.
Right.
You would just say,
Yeah,
I don't care.
and we add that judgment in there that, well, but that's all in the name of keeping me safe.
Yes.
It's all in the name of keeping me safe. And if I stay safe, then I have that presence and that's acceptable.
Well,
The price is acceptable.
I'm in control.
Right.
Oh, and this is all a belief, by the way, because none of this is actually a truth. It's just what the ego believes.
Right.
Everybody always says, oh, well, the ego's purpose is to keep you safe. No, the ego believes it's keeping you safe because the ego's purpose is to maintain the identity of the individual and to keep it separate and excluded.
Right. Right. Which means the belief that I need things because I don't have access to everything.
Right. Because
which
I'm
is
separate.
that small container.
Right. A small container of the individual identity. And
Good
so
morning,
that's
Gloria.
So that is good morning, Gloria. And that is the idea of, oh, I'm keeping you safe, meaning no, I'm keeping us in a container that keeps us in an identity and separate from everything else. But when our goals become to allow ourselves the wholeness and allow ourselves that inner relation as the one, right? Then it's important for us to be able to let go of that. Right. And not to say it's bad, to say, hey, we've had a bang up time doing this as an individual. We have done this awesomely. And now it's time not to get rid of the identity completely, but to say, I appreciate the identity for what it's been, and I allow the wholeness beyond those borders. Right.
Right.
And that's freedom. The freedom then becomes, I can pull stuff in. So then that's what I started doing. That's what my whole goal all for the past week was in meditation was, okay, to see anything else I needed to see through those anxieties, through those idea of lack or scarcity that I have still held, to say, okay, well, I appreciate you, because it's important in that forgiveness. And I apologize, I forgive. Go take our forgiveness course if you haven't done it, because that's right. So many things. Apologize, forgive, accept, embrace, love, and have gratitude for this experience, for the experience of scarcity, for the experience of blank within scarcity, and to keep me safe through the ego's perception. And I now think it and let it go free and allow myself the freedom. And by the way, I am worthy to, I remember how to, and it's always like, I'm worthy to remember how to allow myself to be free, be free. And what's interesting is, so like, that's what I've just been doing in meditation every morning this past week. Well, here's something really funny. So the scarcity thing that came up for me just had to do with some financial stuff. And it was really interesting that I was like, and it was like, I'm like, why am I panicking about this? I know it always shows up. I know it always comes together. I always have more than enough. It's always, fine. And so that's what every time it started to creep back in, I'm like, nope, thank you, scarcity. And we're done. And, blah, blah, blah. I had a check. Seriously, I had a $2,000 check show up randomly on Saturday that I had no idea was outstanding. Like, it was from refinancing my house a year ago, and they had some kind of error in what they paid out or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, here. And it was like a $2,000 check just showed up. And I'm like, see, now that's the freedom.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's when it's like, okay, well, that's actually takes care of that one thing I was like thinking about. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And when you get out of the scarcity, you allow for that freedom of it coming to you in all these ways that have nothing to do with maybe what you do day to day, that it just drops into your lap. How free is that?
Really free. And it's such an exhilaration that you almost catch yourself like, I'm not worthy of this, or I don't trust myself with this. And as we shift more from the mind into the heart, that trust is more automatic, and that worthiness just is there as that foundation.
Mhm.
And, again, another one of our courses, the worthiness.
Uh-huh.
And it almost cements in that that foundation coming from the heart. Let's see, Michael's got a comment. Had a similar experience with coming back from a trip and had to replace all 4 tires on my car. Went right to finding solution mode since I can't stand keeping in scarcity mode. Yep.
Yeah. It's like going into allowing mode versus
Right.
scarcity mode, right?
Right.
Because, and that's I started doing consciously last week, was anytime that little like, blah, 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 and the worry started coming in, be like, nope, I'm just throwing it to the universe and it's going to happen and it'll be fine. And da, 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 and it is, it always is every time I do that. So I'm like, okay, all right, well, thank you for that reinforcement, because it's just a little reminder,
Right. I found as the more I became that heart focused, I found the scarcity hiding in places that I didn't expect, like just consuming things and having leftover containers, and then feeling guilty over, oh, I have all this recycling, and TV tells you, well, even if you put it in your bin, only 8% is recycled, and you get into that. I just get paralyzed, like I shouldn't be doing this. It's not for the good of the whole. And you become smaller, you shrink. And that is such a, for me, it's such a showstopper. It's like everything stops and I have to come back to that. Okay, how do I want to feel in the next 5 minutes? To allow me to get back into that heart place, because my mind wants to click in and go, I can solve this. I can solve this problem. And it's not a mind problem, it's a heart problem.
Yes.
And it really, it changes how you look at everything. And when you see the judgments behind all of it, it becomes easier to identify more places where you're unconscious of that scarcity.
Right. Right. And the more you get into the practice of, see, the most challenging part is when you start. And it's really funny because it's years now that I've really learned to trust and throw it out to the universe or my expanded consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, and say, I know that I'm supported in this. I know it'll be taken care of, blah, blah, blah. Right. I know that there's a bigger picture to this, and I allow that to come into play. But you know what? It makes it a little easier, like, because it's played out a whole bunch of times, but the ego still tries to jump in and goes, oh, but what about that time that this didn't happen, or this one time, and da, da, da. And it's like, well, but maybe if you look at the bigger picture, it was actually perfect because of whatever needed to happen. Right.
Exactly.
And so it's like, okay, so then I had to go to what I have shifted to over the past several days has been allowing myself the freedom of completing what I came here to complete, right? And to do so in freedom without the scarcity, that I can still do it, to allow myself to know and remember that and trust that I can still do it in the freedom of, of fun and ease, just to remember all that, and to not have to care an iota, because it will all be taken care of. Like literally the ground is created at my feet as I walk, kind of thing, the steps, as you
leap and the wings appear, or
that kind of stuff. And it's like, so I've been really focusing on shifting my whole heart set to that's my existence. I'm not playing by the old game anymore, even though it's still a habit to try to throw it back in. Right. So I've been watching myself with that.
And as you encounter things that I don't want to say trigger, because it's not necessarily a trigger, but remind you of a place where you felt in lack or need or less than, you want to go back to the tools that used to work for you. And that's typically the mind.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
that,
the mind goes, I got this. I know how to, this
right,
formula.
right. And it's allowing the heart to step in to guide the mind
Right.
and say, yeah, you do have this, but let's approach it from this perspective, from the heart.
Right. Or that was a little piece of the bigger picture. So let's just approach it from the bigger picture. And that gives you far many more options on solving that riddle.
It really does. It really does. And especially if you can look at it from the perspective of, when I use my mind, my options are like this. And when
Yes.
I use my heart, it's limitless,
It's like-
things
it's-
that I can't even imagine.
Right. And it's funny because we say it and we say it and we say it and we say it in the spiritual community, but we don't live it. Like this is the
Right.
real true shift into living ascension. This is truly a shift because it's up to us to catch ourselves. Because like you're saying, we have it hidden in so many cracks and crevices.
We
Right.
really do.
Right. Like when you were talking about your insertion of like the who's eating who in nature and all that kind of stuff. Right. And and you said you had a big meltdown with that.
I tell you, going in my garden, and I'm always conscious if I ever like try to spray for ants or something because they're trying to get in my house, and then it's like, oh, but don't hurt the lizards, and then I find out the lizards are eating my butterfly eggs and my butterfly chrysalis, and then it's like, now the lizards are bad, and it's just,
and the ladybug babies, they eat the eggs as well.
right. Ladybugs to help with the aphids, but then they eat the butterfly eggs and the butterfly larvae, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't control this.
Right.
I can't control this. And just that letting go was really uncomfortable because I felt guilty that I wasn't the good person that I used to think that I was, trying to protect things. And that was last weekend.
Yeah.
That was last weekend.
Yeah.
And this weekend is better. I'm more like, when my dogs are out chasing lizards, I'm kind of like, yeah, we probably need to thin that population a little bit.
It's funny, after you mentioned that, I've seen so many lizards over the past
Right.
But
I look at them very differently now. Yeah. They're not lizards, they're butterfly eaters.
Well, and it's funny too, because it is true. It has to do with your perspective, right? So in one case, and this is a perfect example, I used to have, for anybody who doesn't know, I used to own an organic herb nursery, a commercial herb nursery. And when I had the herb nursery, caterpillars were not my friend.
Right.
Because they would eat my profits. Right. So they loved
overnight.
Overnight. Oh my gosh. Because I had plants and I also had beds of because I would do fresh cut for restaurants and retail, right? As well as then I would sell the potted plants. So the beds that I would do like dill and parsley, and I had to watch like a hawk,
right?
Because dill, parsley, fennel, those cows, swallowtail butterflies, love
absolutely.
And so I would have to watch my dog, and I would have to kill those caterpillars because otherwise they would just eat. They would eat my parsley.
Put you out of business.
They put me out of business. So it was eat or be eaten, right?
Right.
And so, which is really the thing I've been seeing with the hawks lately, right? Because I've told you that I've seen them like snatch stuff up in front of me lately. It's very bizarre. But the funny part is now I'm like, oh my gosh, and of course I would not think twice about having ladybugs in the greenhouses because they would help with
take care of that, right?
Or the other stuff, yeah. So now it's like we're talking about that, right? Because I was like, oh well, yeah, because there's aphids on my milkweed. I've noticed. Right. They're like, maybe I need to get some ladybugs, and you come back, you're like, they eat the caterpillar eggs.
Right.
And I was like, at one point it wouldn't have bothered me, and I would have been like, great. And now I'm like, oh no, because I have an entire pollinator garden in the front of my house, and I'm getting ready to put one in the back as well. So it's like funny how our perspective changes, and then we base judgments off of that scarcity.
Right. I had a really intense conversation with my husband about how you define winning, and that determines how you judge a situation. And if we just come back to the place of winning is living in bliss, everything changes. But if winning is, well, I get this business deal, or I have this size house, or I drive this kind of car, or I have this in my bank account, or I dress this way, or I weigh this much, or I don't have gray hair, or I'm not bald, or all these different things, it really distracts us.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we can take a look at that, and
that's all scarcity, because it's
and
like,
I was just getting ready to say, and all that feeds into, I need something
right. And when we
external of
say
what I already have.
right. And so if we live in freedom, right? If we truly allow ourselves to live in freedom of that infinite capability, and I am not just this, right? I am not this exclusion. I am this and everything else. When we allow ourselves to be that freedom, then more and more, it doesn't matter. I can live in a tin can and it doesn't matter. I'm still divinely, divinely.
Right.
I am, I could be any place. I could be doing anything. No matter what that is, I still am all of it, as well as that piece. And that's what that sort of sums up all the stuff we've been talking about. But like, we talk about that and then we don't know how to apply it into our everyday lives. And so this is the whole consciousness to have, is when, how about this? How about something simple like I go to the store and I wanted to buy this product and I wanted to buy this brand because that's the brand I like. And you go and they don't have it. They're out.
Right.
And you were dead set on that because you were going to make this for dinner tonight. And I wanted this and this had to be in that. Well, then what do? What are your choices, right? The mind says, well, let me control. Scarcity. Right. That means I don't have what I want, or is it just for me to do something else and then do this another night? Or I can go to 5 stores trying to find the same thing, right? And look
only
at
to
how
find out it's just not available.
Right. And then, or how about this? I have to do this. I'm making this dinner for my friend or my spouse or my lover or whatever, right? And I like, this is their favorite thing and I'm going to make it, and blah, 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 blah. And then you go through all this trouble and then something happens like that's unexpected and they can't even make it.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, oh, well, maybe the message was, yeah, you don't need to make that tonight because they're not going to be able to make it or whatever.
Right.
Or,
and it comes back to that the acceptance of everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And if you step back from the judgment of the actual events that are unfolding and just come into that place of acceptance, like, well, there's something here for me.
Right.
That changes the whole dynamic and the whole energy around that frustration or those circumstances.
Well, and so the question for us to always ask ourselves, like, if we want to step back and look at where our scarcity lies, where are we saying to ourselves, I need more blank?
Right.
Where are we saying that? Like in what way? Yeah. And I mean, that pretty much, sometimes it just comes down to, I need more control. I believe, and because it's a belief. Whenever I say I need, it's a belief to the ego, right? I need this, I need that.
It's the mind talking. It's not the heart.
Yes. And like the heart would say, it's time to access this.
Right.
And allow it.
Right.
Stop. And if you think about what's behind those words is, stop preventing yourself from accessing that. Stop limiting your freedom.
Right.
That's from the heart. The mind is saying, oh, I've got to get, don't have enough, must have more, blah, 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 blah. Meaning I don't have it within me. And the heart's going, yes, stop limiting yourself and allow it to be a part of you.
Right.
That makes a huge difference in energy. Right. So this is that's how so all week, that's what it is for you to do, is like, ask yourself, like, where am I saying I need more of this. Or you're making decisions based on, well, I need to get this, so I need to do this, right?
Right.
I need to,
The other
go
the other
ahead.
point I was just looking at our notes from Friday. The other point that we made was sometimes we use the anxiety created by that scarcity as our motivator, and we believe it makes us more productive.
Yes.
And that's another place where it sneaks in, and look at that and say, why do I believe that I need that there?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need that motivation?
Right, because we believe that it's our propulsion, right?
Right.
Because we'll say, because, like, and we were talking about, like, sometimes some of us are better procrastinators. Why? Because when we have the fire lit under us of saying, I only have this finite amount of time, I must get it done. It's like, that's where, and the anxiety is, I'm not going to have enough time to do it. So I've got to really, really focus.
Right.
Right. Because then my end goal for that is, well, then it'll please somebody else, or it'll like do something that's going to please something that's going to make me look like a good person, like most times than not, and all that kind of stuff. But when we start unpacking this, it's like, oh, of course, that's so obvious. Oh yeah, that's really obvious,
Right.
But so that's I think that's our goal this week, is that number one, allowing ourselves, I'm going to just stay on the theme of what I've been doing in my meditation, is number one, allowing that completion, right? The apology, forgiveness, accepting,
Right.
embracing, loving, having gratitude for all the situations where we have propelled ourselves through scarcity, right? And we've kept ourselves safe from freedom, right? And it's funny because when you say it that way, the ego goes, what do you mean keep myself safe from freedom? Because that's all I want is freedom. It's like, no, but just think about it. Think about how many people have won the lottery and then they end up being in the same place they were because they're like, oh, I finally just had this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. Then they end up being the same or worse than before, because then it's like they haven't changed energy, right?
Right.
Or it's like when we are afraid of freedom because, like, think about it, when you have a blank canvas, it's like sometimes more overwhelming than when you say,
Intimidating.
I need to draw a horse, right? Okay, well, that's a control. But when you have a blank canvas that says you can draw anything you want, you don't have to draw anything. You can leave it blank. You can just do it all black or one color. You could do like anything, textures, like raised, not raised. And then the mind just shuts down saying, I can't compute all of these possibilities. And that's what we're afraid of. That's the fear we talk about. It's funny. I was talking to somebody recently in the spiritual community, and somebody I hadn't talked to in a long time, and who I consider very aware and conscious. And they were talking about, oh, well, we can only go so far. Like we can't remember, like we can't access more than this because our minds won't allow it. We don't have that capacity. And I said, if you believe that, then that'll be the case.
Right.
I'm like, but I don't believe that. I believe that we allow our physicality and our minds allow more as we allow more consciousness, to allow ourselves to live in more consciousness. And that's a freedom thing.
Right.
Because we say, no, I'm only going to allow it. And we've done it to serve us. We've done it to serve the density. We've done it to serve the separation. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's nothing gone bad. It's nothing, whatever. Because I've heard a lot of people say
not a punishment.
Right. And that's what many people believe too. It's a punishment, or we did it wrong, or we took a wrong turn, or whatever. No, this was all the plan. This is what we wanted to experience. And now it's like, to move past this is to appreciate it for what it's been, and to allow beyond, right? To allow beyond while we're still here. Right. So it's the release of this really carnal fear of freedom.
Right. It's
because if you have everything, because many people say, oh, well, look at the people who have everything. They have nothing, because like they get depressed. Well, that's the thing, is many do, because we believe we have to need something. We believe we have to be in scarcity to exist here. We believe we need to be reaching for something, doing something, going towards
Striving.
something, striving, because attaining instead of allowing. Like, what
Right.
if we just changed our entire experience here to be, okay, well, I come in here forgetting, and now I'm going to allow, and I'm going to allow it in these steps. And then I'm just going to see how much more amazing and colorful it becomes to be in separation and in wholeness simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, I see you like just totally dazed out.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. I just went way out there.
It's like a you smoking something over there.
Oh man, that was really powerful. That was great.
Right. So that's that's for us today. Like, that's like allowing that, opening that door and knowing, yes, we can handle that. We can absolutely, like, I've seen so many things in the spiritual community that say, oh, well, you can't go beyond here because you just don't have the capacity. Or how many times people talk about the channeling in of, oh, well, yeah, you humans just can't. We're that as well as this. And that's the whole thing that we've kept in exclusion. And now it's time to allow it to come back together. So it's like, yes, we have this capacity, and we have this capacity, and we have this capacity.
Right.
And so let's open the door to allow that in a way that's easy and fun and enjoyable. Right. And that freedom and true, like in the true sense of the infinite abilities and allowances that we can access is fun and enjoyable. And we can do it while we're still in identity form, embodied.
Right.
Oh, I'm just
And
all
that,
taking.
that freedom is the ultimate safe.
Yes. Right.
And that's really turning that around.
Well, and it all goes back to, remember, we did the whole series on definitions, right? Because safe
Right.
is something the mind tries to define.
Right.
Because there is no need for safety when you have access to everything. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, you're never safe or you're always safe, all depending on how you're looking at it.
Right.
Because even if I die, I'm still everything.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
yeah. And it's that definition.
right. So all of that, let's allow ourselves to open our hearts and our minds to all of that, and to be able to see, ask ourselves constantly, and to see where we still hold those doors closed in scarcity and whatever, and the lack of freedom, which we only do to ourselves, no matter what it looks like in the 3D. Nobody
Right.
does it to us. We allow it. So, as I've said to people before is, there's there's somebody I worked with in prison for like 6.5 years. And when she was really, really doing a lot of her self-work and everything, I said to her, there are people I work with who are far less free than you are.
Oh,
And they're outside of these walls.
Exactly.
And it's all because it's all here.
It is. It is.
So allowing that freedom, allowing that letting go, and accessing that, allowing ourselves to complete those lessons of scarcity, to thank them, to see whatever's left that we might be holding in for, that it might be showing us, and then to thank it and let it go on its merry way. Allow that freedom, allow the being here and the whole and all that stuff that we said. I'm just already out there. So let's just go and do that, shall we?
Yeah, I'm really out there too.
All right. So as we do, everybody get comfortable, take a deep breath. Oh, I could barely breathe there. Oh, okay. As we close our eyes and we step out of separation back into wholeness and wholeness and oneness, and we hold ourselves with the vibration where that is the truth. That is our truth. That is from where we exist, create, and experience. All right.
Are you there?
Yeah, you're frozen on my screen though.
Yeah, I can still hear you though. So I guess we'll just go on.
Well,
Guess
because
I went way out there.
yeah, because you look like you're still sitting there with your eyes closed. Oh my gosh, that was so huge. Are you still there? Oh, there you
Yeah.
are.
I thought that might help. Turn it off, turn it back on.
That was so huge. Like so delicious. See, it was yummy. Beyond that, just felt so freeing.
Yes, that was crazy.
It was like an ever expanding, like like they show the pictures of like the slow release, like the time lapse, like the blossoming of a flower. But it
Right.
was like energetic and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just went so far out there. I was like, oh, and then I remember seeing things, but I can't remember what they were. And it was like, oh yeah, now we can let go of this and I can let go of this and I can do this. And it was like, oh my God, it feels so free. It's so easy. And it was like, and then I just don't remember beyond that because I was way out there.
Right. Yasmin agrees. She said that was awesome. I felt like my body just kept getting more tingly and lighter, but yet my head just kept feeling so heavy and so thick, for lack of a better word. And I saw that it was like all these connections, and I would go through and I would unlock all those connections. And it was like the connection didn't go away. I was just allowed to walk through it. And it was like the best of both worlds. It was
Right.
that
Right.
you don't lose that connectivity and those thoughts and everything else. They just shift perspective, and you then just, they don't impede your progress or
Right.
impede your expansion. It
Yes.
was great.
It
Really
was
great.
great. When you said that, that reminded me in the beginning, I saw a ton of doors and it was like, but they were like, it was like seeing in some movie where you're seeing multidimensionally and you see all these doors like lined up on all these like just thousands and thousands of doors. And it was like they all just opened and everything just like flowed through, right? Like you were saying, like when you're saying like it didn't go away, it's like, no, they're still there now. It's just I unlocked and opened all of them. And it's like, oh, well, now I can just like flow through all of them. And
Right.
that was the energy. Yeah, very nice. That was really nice. I know every week we're like, oh, that was awesome. That was particularly awesome today.
Right.
All right. So this is a great week for this. Everybody talks about like the Lionsgate and whatever, and it's realizing stuff and coming to realization and stuff and that kind of energy. And it's like, yeah, well, then allow it to be in however form beyond your just individuality and trust.
Right.
That's part of trust, which we have a whole course on trust.
That's
Go
right.
to Wonderland.site. That's where we have it all. So
Right.
Yeah.
Got the worthiness, the forgiveness, trust for others.
Shadow, self-love,
Self-responsibility.
responsibility. How many is that? 6? Guidance.
That's the 7th. Yep. Which all this comes back to, is this for me?
Right. See how it's all just related.
Right. Can't separate it.
No. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Have a fabulous week, and we will next time.
Let us know in the comments.
Yes, let us know in the comments like how you experienced this, like what you noticed. And if you know people, like everybody needs, I think we all need a taste of this. So pass it on, share, please. Share this link, share our, the
podcast,
share the podcast,
subscribe.
Yep. Follow.
Yep. All those
mention
words.
Yeah. All those things. All right. And then we'll see you next time. So this is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
signing off with this week's Living Ascension. Have a great one, everyone.